Nestled between the mighty Himalaya to the north and the thick band of jungle stretching across the south, for centuries Nepal has been sheltered from many outside influences. Rising from less than 100 metres in the southern plains to nearly 9,000 metres along the northern border in a span of just 100 miles, this almost vertical country is further divided into deep gorges and valleys by its mighty snow-fed rivers. The country's own geography has indeed shaped a lot of its history and culture. Separated by nature, more than 100 languages have evolved, and nearly as many ethnicities and tribes. But with this diversity has come disparity. Nepal's progress, as measured by the Human Development Index, is amongst the fastest in the world, but this growth has not been shared evenly across society. Many children, adolescents and women, especially those from historically marginalized and disadvantaged groups, are being left out of the nation's progress. Even today, while the average lifespan in Kathmandu is 69 years, most people in the far western district of Mugu die before their 45th birthday. We find more than a third of Nepal's 11 million children living in poverty. The country's poorest children are 2.5 times more likely to have a low weight for their age compared to the richest. Despite recently being awarded a global prize for reductions in maternal mortality, a Dalit woman from the Terai is 14 times less likely to receive skilled birth attendants than a Brahmin woman from the same region. Nepal's poorest population are 26 times less likely to use improved sanitation facilities compared to the richest. The poorest children are almost twice as likely to be married before the age of 18 as the richest. Net enrollment in primary school is lowest amongst the poorest children. These are the inequities that confront children and women today. It was the same social exclusion and deep-seated poverty that sparked a Maoist-led insurgency in 1996 in the mid and far western region that led to a violent civil war across the country, lasting for over a decade. Children and young people were the primary victims of the conflict itself. They were both its targets and often its instruments. Their suffering bears many faces. More than 500 children lost their lives. Approximately 40,000 were displaced, hundreds were wounded, and more than 8,000 were orphaned or separated from their families during the conflict. Alongside UNICEF's ongoing work across a range of children's rights, our response to the conflict, working alongside many other partners, has led to a new beginning for child protection in Nepal. UNICEF has successfully reintegrated over 10,000 children associated with the conflict through the provision of education, livelihood, gender-specific and psychosocial support, as well as community peace-building and reconciliation activities. The children were scattered across 60 of Nepal's 75 districts, most of them in remote villages. But this challenge has been turned into an opportunity to begin a child protection system addressing a wider range of child protection issues. This was first achieved through mobilizing and training local NGOs, in particular psychosocial counselors and social workers, a profession relatively new to Nepal. The next step will be to increase the linkages between local NGOs and district government social welfare services, with a view to establishing coordination and referral mechanisms among a wide range of service providers. This emerging system has been further strengthened through the expansion of paralegal committees, a community-based mechanism to address trafficking of girls and women, gender-based violence, and the abuse, exploitation of, and violence against children, an expansion from 23 to 59 districts. These paralegal committees have empowered women and provided them access to informal justice and moral support, as well as protecting child victims.
प्यारालिगल कमिटीले विशेष गरी महिला र बालबालिकाको क्षेत्रमा महत्त्वपूर्ण योगदान गर्छ र विशेष गरी डोमेस्टिक भायोलेन्सलाई न्यूनीकरण गर्ने र बालबालिकाको अधिकारलाई प्रवर्धन गर्ने कामहरू गरेको छ। अत्यन्त नेपाल सरकारलाई यसबाट युनिसेफले प्यारेलल डेभलपमेन्ट कमिटीले ठुलो गुण लगाएको छ भन्ने मैले महसुस गरेको छु।
This effort to build a comprehensive system recognises the difficulty and unsustainability of dealing with child rights on an issue-by-issue basis. Such a system needs effective national policy, but also requires community engagement. And this again is where UNICEF has assisted Nepal. For example, triggered by a severe epidemic of diarrhea in 2009, and recognising so much work needs to be done to improve water and sanitation for children, public and private sector agencies and communities have come together under the umbrella of Aligning for Action to make diarrhea epidemics history in Nepal. With support from UNICEF, this social movement has accelerated the installation of latrines in schools and local communities, with children leading the promotion of hygiene and sanitation. Much remains to be done to reach the government's goal of total sanitation by 2017. But in the last 2 years alone, UNICEF has directly contributed to an increase in improved water supply by 3% and sanitation coverage by 13% in 22 of the most disadvantaged districts, benefiting hundreds and thousands of Nepal's children and women.
गर्न हामी सबले गरिरहेका थियौं तर आफ्नो आफ्नो मोडलमा गरिरहेको हुनाले त्यसको आउटपुट राम्रो देखिएन। त्यो आउटपुटलाई राम्रो देखाउनको लागि हामी सबजना बस्यौं र हामी एउटै मोडल तयार गर्यौं र एउटै मोडल तयार गरी त्यो मोडलमा गयो भने केही न केही आउटपुट हुन्छ भनेर हामीले एलाइनिङ द एक्सन गर्यौं। राष्ट्रिय डाटा यदि हामीले हेर्यौं भने नेपालको कुनै पनि क्षेत्रभन्दा मध्यपश्चिममा धेरै राम्रो प्रतिफल देखाएको छ र एक वर्षमा 17% कभरेज भन्नु भने कुरा एउटा ठूलो उपलब्धि नै हो र हामीले त्यो उपलब्धि एलाइनिङ द एक्सन र सोशल मुभमेन्टकै आधारमा हामीले प्राप्त गरेका छौं।
UNICEF has been working in Nepal for over 40 years and contributed to many of the impressive gains Nepal has achieved for children and women. But our work here is by no means over. Helping the government to achieve progress with equity for children's survival, development, protection and participation remain our core goal. But at the same time, we are helping the government to address emerging issues, such as governance in a new federal setup, economic crises, urbanisation and climate change, so that all children, adolescents and women enjoy their rights. And these are the remaining challenges that lie ahead. All the while, we must not forget that Nepal's diverse topography conceals another sinister threat to children and women. The country is highly vulnerable to earthquake, floods, landslides and droughts. Every year, an average of 1,000 lives and $43 million are lost to disasters. The indirect cost in terms of lost opportunities and service delivery breakdown has even greater impact on children, families and their livelihoods. UNICEF's emergency preparedness and response was tested on September the 18th, 2011, when an earthquake measuring 6.8 on the Richter scale severely rocked more than a dozen districts in the eastern region of the country. Fortunately, there were few human casualties, but over 500 schools were damaged. The education of some 45,000 schoolchildren was instantly jeopardized. As a cluster lead, UNICEF sprang into action, working with local partners to provide relief material and also to support the government in the construction of temporary learning centres so that children and teachers could get back to school as soon as possible, even while the longer-term reconstruction work began.
हाम्रो विद्यालय चाहिँ 2 दिन बिदा भयो यो विद्यालय भत्केपछि र त्यहाँदेखि चाहिँ हामीले अब सानो सानो अब टराहरू बनाएर भए पनि हामी चाहिँ पढ्छौं भन्ने र पढाइलाई निरन्तर दिइरह्यौं।
विद्यार्थीहरूको पठन पाठनलाई चाहिँ सहजता प्रदान गर्नका लागि हामीले 351 वटा टीएलएस निर्माण कार्यलाई चाहिँ अहिले निरन्तरता दिएका छौं र जुन चाहिँ अधिकांश निर्माण भइसकेका छन्।
And let us give the last word to the children themselves. UNICEF is supporting several initiatives that encourage children to speak and participate, from thousands of child clubs across the country to equity initiatives run by young people themselves, to a free mobile phone texting network that has generated 250,000 messages from young people expressing their hopes and aspirations for their future and for the future of this beautiful country, their homeland, Nepal.